we're using a mass spectrometer, and that is the gold standard for testing for PFAS. There's no other technology that can test to the levels required, parts per trillion, a few parts per trillion. It's absolutely tiny. There are bits and pieces out there and devices that say there's PFAS, but they can't measure it to the levels that we can and give you the stamp to say you've eradicated it or it's no longer there. So I think it's a very exciting time.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Bob Moore, the Chairman and CEO of Metir. Bob, very good to meet you. For investors new to Metir, what problem does your PFAS detection technology solve, and how does it differ from traditional laboratory testing?
PFAS is pervasive. It's everywhere. I won't go into the details, but people can look it up for themselves. At the moment, people who are looking to remediate PFAS have to go to traditional laboratories. It can take 2 to 3 weeks, even longer, to get results. Then they're not happy with that. I've been to conferences, spoken to people who deal directly with this type of thing. We've actually teamed up with ProDecon. We made an announcement about that. They're a remedial company. They're not prepared to wait 2 to 3 weeks, even longer, for results. They go to site, they do the work, they do the remedial work, then they have to send off tests. Those tests they want to demobilize. They have to demobilize, then they have to wait for test results. It's a bad way of running a business to demobilize, don't know what your results are, having to wait, and the customer doesn't know either whether PFAS has been removed or not removed. What we're working on, and we've done successful trials and tests academically, now moving into the commercial environment, is test in the field to give you answers there and then within, say, 30 minutes, something like that. And that's novel. My understanding is no one else can do that right now. And so that's why we believe it is a game changer.
In fact, you've just announced your first commercial sale of a PFAS detector to Veralto, a $20 billion US water technology group. How significant is
Yeah.
that validation, and what could a successful deployment mean for future commercial opportunities?
They've been over to see us. They've had a couple of trips. They've had the equipment for quite a while. They've been looking at the equipment very, very carefully. They're looking to optimize it for their customers and their clients. We're looking to simplify the use of the technology a bit, and that's where we've teamed up with a company called FidChem, which we announced recently. These guys are going to put an AI wrapper over the data set to make it a lot easier to interpret the results, a lot faster, and it will enable us to reduce um, uh, the skill level that we need to operate the machine in the field, so that we'll be able to, mass spec specialists are very highly trained. They're not, they don't come, you don't come across them easily, and they don't really need to go out into the field. And so if we can get it to technician level, that's what we want to do. That's what Veralto want to see from us. Get it down to that technician level, and that's what we've been working with them to do. I think the FidChem connection is going to boost that dramatically. So Veralto is potentially a very big partner in the future.
PFAS regulation tightening across Europe and the US, Bob. How big is the market opportunity you see emerging, and which sectors are showing the strongest demand for rapid on-site testing?
We have to use external data, of course. I can't verify any of this, but we do our best. And people are talking about a testing market of $1 billion. I mean, by 2030, it's growing. I think pretty much exponentially. Um, you know, Laboratory tests are expensive. Each test can be 500 to £1,000, and they need many, many tests every time they do a site clearance. So, we think that we haven't fully modeled it, but we think that we can make a big dent into the market. The biggest where people are coming to us at the moment is firefighting foams, particularly in used for aircraft fires. They are all over the world. People use them. They use them for training. They obviously use them, obviously, when there's a serious fire. There is a lot of PFAS in these foams historically. They've stopped making them now, but those foams have been used. They have got into the soils, and they have got into the water supply. I'm not trying to panic people, but it is out there. So we found that remedial action for foams is one of the biggest, if not the biggest pull for us at the moment.
I mean, you recently completed and commissioned 27 continuous toxicity monitors in Doha for Karama. How important is that project as a proof point for your technology? And what does it tell potential customers about your ability to deliver monitoring solutions at scale?
We own the Microtox brand, which is a gold standard in many countries. It's the gold standard. It does a clean sweep of thousands of toxins. There's pretty much nothing else around that can do that. It's highly reactive to toxins. It doesn't tell you exactly what the toxin is, but it tells you you've got something in your water. You need to turn off that supply quickly. Our job is to stop that toxin going downstream into the supply network. That's why Qatar like our technology. There are 27 water pumping stations currently have a continuous toxic monitoring machine in situ. That machine is 24/7, constantly looking at the water. If there's something wrong with it, toxins in that water, the alarm goes off within minutes and they can shut that pumping station down. That's what they want. They have the highest standards for their water in Doha. It's very impressive. In fact, it started off really after the World Cup, the amount of people who were visiting Doha, they wanted to make sure that everyone, couple of million people who live in Doha and also all visitors are protected because their water is desalinated. That's one of the reasons it goes through a lot of industrial processes. They want to check very, very carefully that it's fit to drink. It's a great springboard for us, that flagship project. We're treating it as a flagship. We're hoping to expand the project to 44 pumping stations. That's phase two. And we're hoping to get that project subject to normal tender procedures, of course. But we are unique. We're the only people who make the continuous toxic monitoring device. No one else does.
Bob, beyond PFAS, you've launched the Quick Check SRB kits and you're developing a real-time pathogen detector with Aptamer Group. How do these products fit into your broader strategy and how significant could they become as additional revenue streams?
Quick Check is already has been in production. It's a product that we already have, and we had we needed to scale up quite dramatically, and we found that the current method just needs an antibody that has to be manufactured. We found that the current method was suboptimal, and we just couldn't scale up to the levels. I mean, Saudi Aramco, have ordered 350 kits. These kits, we're selling them around £700 a kit, for example. These kits are pretty unique. They use an antibody. That antibody has to be manufactured. So we had to cut back production, unfortunately, for a while. But now we're going back to optimal production, which should hopefully start in the third quarter this year. And it's well on the track to do so. So that's the SRB kits. SRB, just to let you know, sulfate reducing bacteria. These are highly corrosive bacteria. This is different to the water microtox. Highly corrosive bacteria that get into pipes and tanks, and you need to detect them very quickly. And that's why our quick check device is the fastest one on the market. That's why they like it. You said the pathogen detector. That's a new device. It was based on a COVID detector that was designed several years ago, but it was parked because the desire for a COVID detector seemed to wane. And we mothballed the project, and now we've reactivated it for Cryptosporidium, which is a pathogen that can get into the drinking water. It has done in the UK in several places. The most well-known one was in Devon a couple of years ago, and people were made very, very ill. And it's because it took them so long to detect the problem and work out what they had. It took them a couple of days. Our pathogen detector, working with Aptamer Group, is an online live data machine, which in itself would probably have picked that up within minutes. That they knew that this was going downstream. So had they had our device, they would have, I think we would have helped prevent that catastrophic event. So we're hoping that's going to come on stream early 2027. We're on track with that. Aptamer Group are doing very, very well, and we think their work will finish in Q3. Then we need to do some more optimization work on the hardware, which will probably take several months. But then hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have it in a good position to send out to the water companies. One particular water company is very, very keen to get hold of it. Another one's contacted us. We think as people get to see its capabilities, that we'll expand that market quite significantly.
Bob, you also expanded your distributor network across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. With new markets opening up and several technologies approaching commercialization, what are the key milestones investors should be watching out for over the next year or so?
Well, I think, I think we should be watching out for more continuous toxic monitoring projects based on similar to the what we're doing in Qatar right now in Doha. Sales of our microtox. Microtox is the actually the bioreagent that reacts extremely quickly. We have three devices. We have the CTM, which is an automatic machine plumbed in. We have the LX, which is a laboratory machine, which is used by a technician. And we have the FX, which goes out into the field that you can manually, literally go to a site, sample it there and then see if there's anything toxic there. So we're hoping to expand the sales of those. We're looking into the Middle East market to develop from our Qatar footprint there. And I think that SRB sales, I think, should go up significantly once we're able to manufacture to the scaled up volumes. We'll be able to sell pretty much as many as we can produce because they're a very popular product. And hopefully the pathogen detector will start to make an impact next year. I think the PFAS as well. Obviously, there's some optimization work to be done with the PFAS technology. With, of course, we're talking about the machine learning AI as well, and it needs tweaking. It's been used in an academic environment, moving towards commerciality. That needs validation. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just say this is a great bit of kit, let's use it. People have to validate it. You have to show it against current standards. We have to show that we can meet the standards that a conventional offsite lab can do. And those off-site labs, obviously they've been the standard method up till now, but we're using a mass spectrometer, and that is the gold standard for testing for PFAS. There's no other technology that can test to the levels required, parts per trillion, a few parts per trillion. It's absolutely tiny. There are bits and pieces out there and devices that say there's PFAS, but they can't measure it to the levels that we can and give you the stamp to say you've eradicated it or it's no longer there. So I think it's a very exciting time.
Sounds an exciting time, Bob. Thank you very much for the introduction. I hope you'll keep us updated with your progress.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your program.
Very welcome. Bob Moore, the Chairman and CEO of Metir.